Hello, and welcome back to the Celestial Perch. Tonight I have the third and final installment of the Holy Covenant review. The first Holy Covenant review, part 1, went over level 1 and level 2, and part 2 went over level 3 and level 4. And now, in this installment, we're going to be looking at the 5th and last level, as well as kind of going back to what I said in the first video. We will be kind of comparing this maybe to another federation, see how it might play out, and also just kind of comparing it single player versus multiplayer. So let's delve straight in to a union of faith. So non-spiritualist, non-gestalt empires have bureaucratic buildings swapped for temples. Spiritualist empires gain +1 unity from priests. Okay. All empires face 30% slower robotic pop assembly, but 15% faster organic pop growth. Okay, so let's break down the first part of this. The having your bureaucratic buildings swap for temples, it's like this probably won't impact you. It's really only going to affect the AI. Um, Not bad. It's just you're probably going to glance over that and not really care. Spiritualist empires gain +1 unity from priests. Had this been maybe level 2, would have been something to talk about, but it's level 5. Just extra unity at this point. It's the entire covenant. It's just extra unity, so it's overall okay. All empires face 30% slower robotic pop assembly. Uh, if you're going this deep into the Holy Covenant and you're playing Spiritualist Empire, there's a chance you don't have any robot pop assembly anyways, so this won't affect you. And the 15% faster organic pop growth is nice. Once again, it is the 5th and last level, so it'll take you a bit of time to get here. So maybe it could have been 30%, or even a bit more, considering how deep within the tree this is. Now, keep in mind, you might get there a bit quicker because we have the extra cohesion from our envoys assigned, but still, I kind of wish this little text here had been maybe slapped on to just one thing within each tier. Like it could have been something within ecclesiastical funding, maybe not within level 1, but it could have also maybe been thrown into level 3, 4, and 5, just in a way to kind of boost your organic pop growth. Synthetics and robot pop assembly is already so high, so just a way to catch up would be nice. Overall, Union of Faith, once again, kind of meh. It's really not the best considering it's going to take you long to get here. You're just getting a bit of extra unity and a bit of extra organic pop growth. Organic pop growth, remember, is nothing bad. It's just I don't know how long it'll take you to actually get here. And by the time you get here, it might not really be worth too much. Now, here's the interesting one. Zero Catalyst. Um, you get an additional edict, which we can turn Zero into increased resource output. I mean, depending on what this actually is, like I said before, haven't really been playing the beta too much. I delved into it a bit. Um, I'll see if I can find it and throw it up here on the screen, but depending on how powerful this actually is, uh, it could vary in usefulness. The thing is, there really isn't too much use for Zero aside from just like psionic shields. Um, they've been adding extra stuff in. It says it's a rare resource, but really once you have at least 1 to 2 deposits of it, you never have to worry about it. So getting something else to spend your Zero on is always nice. And increased resource output, that's just good. And lastly, the Reverent Edicts. So by the grace of the Holy Covenant, we get, for the President only, 20% extra Edicts Fund. Edicts Fund basically just means more unity because the edicts, for the most part, are unity based. So having additional edicts fund means that you don't have to dip into your actual unity production earlier. So if you have, let's say, Imperial Cult stacked with some other just edict fund modifiers, this 20% gets better and better And this is something that actually kind of scales quite nice into the late game, um, compared to, I believe, the Psionic Ascension. The final perk gives you 50 Edict Fund. The flat Edict Funds, they're not bad. It's just that in the late game, um, by the time you're using more and more edicts, they become extremely expensive due to your empire size modifier. So having a percent modifier is actually a bit more useful. Single player and multiplayer first, and then we'll delve into how this maybe pairs up against like the research cooperative. For single player, I think it's fine. You're gonna be able to maybe get at a empire or two to join you, probably spiritualist. If I had to guess from the AI, probably only spiritualist. There are a few good bonuses, primarily to Unity, which is unfortunately really what most of the Covenant focuses on. It's just Unity, and you're already going to have a lot of that. So having more of it's never bad, but I really wish they'd kind of maybe kind of put in a few more kind of cool things to maybe buff up organic pop growth, or maybe add in like a few cooler things that kind of tie into like the psionic side of things for the president. Like maybe something here as well. Maybe add a little bit extra to Shroud, like maybe some increased benefit to the Shroud, or maybe even like a reduction to the Shroud penalties when you whiff. Uh, that could be nice. But, you know, all in all, I think it's probably like a B for single player, maybe a B plus. Now for multiplayer, it's probably going to be hard to get people to join this if you're just playing with like if you're just playing with people. This is probably going to be hard to get people to join. Spiritualist isn't exactly the most meta pick, and the benefits of it are primarily Unity, so it's unlikely that people will be going for this, as opposed to something like the Research Cooperative or like a Martial Alliance. If you're playing in kind of like a mixed single player multiplayer, I would say it probably lands somewhere in like a C plus. And if you're playing in purely multiplayer with just other human players, I would say it's probably somewhere in like a D plus. D plus to C minus. Those are kind of my ratings for this so far. Primarily, its power will be in single player, at least from what I can see so far. Haven't actually played with it too much, but from first impressions, those are my initial ratings. And lastly, comparing it to something like the Research Cooperative, um, both are hyper-focused on one thing. The Research Cooperative hyper-focused on research, and this obviously on Unity. Each one kind of has some other things thrown in there, like Research Cooperative, you'll get extra envoys, megastructure build capacity, and then primarily you'll get stuff like research from trade, research speed from agreements, research speed during a crisis, um, and just research alternatives and research speed. Overall, I think in multiplayer, those tend to be a bit better. I I think comparing them just one to one, in general, Unity is just it's missing just a bit. I feel if Planetary Ascension wasn't something that scaled for just overall, whereas if you increase one planet to tier 10, it will increase the cost to increase another planet from tier 1 to tier 2. I kind of wish that there were other ways to maybe give Unity focused empires like a real benefit from having like a major surplus of Unity in the late game, aside from just being able to fund extra edicts, which is kind of in the late game where that boils down. Uh, like how useful is it to have 2 to 3 edicts and a little bit of extra tech, or 8 edicts and a little bit less tech? I think overall, though, the Research Cooperative and maybe the Martial Alliance, because those two are kind of more generally focused, research is just kind of generally powerful, whereas Unity is just still a little bit too specific, and extra ship fire rate and extra like military effectiveness just probably outclasses Unity development a bit more. So I would say it probably falls somewhere in like the middle of the pack. I would take this over like a Galactic Union, and I would obviously take this over um, those two if I was the president and if I was a spiritualist psionic. That's really where this comes into play. Is just, are you the president and are you going psionic? Because then you can take advantage of shroud delving. You could take advantage of having extras row because they'll be wanting to have that anyways, and just it it'll be probably only used by those people and probably only in single player because it'll be hard to get people to join this in a multiplayer game. But that is the wrapping up of the Holy Covenant review. I hope to get some additional videos out soon, just kind of going over some additional tips and tricks. I hope to get a few more basic builds out as well. And then eventually my plan is to work towards a kind of like a basic guide for people. And my plan is to start with a basic guide, starting in early game, mid game, and then late game. And then also tying in how to transition from early game to mid game and from mid game to late game. Because that's where a lot of my friends struggle. So I hope that if I can create something that would assist them, it could assist other people as well. But thank you and have a blessed day.